Ever trying to make a joke regarding racial stereotypes and find yourself to be the only one at the table laughing? Race in a lot of places is a sensitive issue, and people are often very uncomfortable when they have to discuss it. Welcome to another episode of Conversations, a weekly program where we interview different guests from the U of O campus and local community. This week, we have a very special guest on our show, Preacher Moss, a comedian who is on the Ozarks campus today for his End of Racism tour. I was curious, so when I graduate college, I know I want to be a journalist.
In 3 months.
Oh, in 3 months.
Yeah.
I know I want to be a journalist. And so I do graduate in 3 months. I'm excited. But how do you decide you want to be a comedian? How do you?
Well, I always wanted to be a comedian. I started when I was 17, and I was in the school of journalism. And at that point in time, as a reflection of my grades, I thought comedy would be a better pursuit than journalism.
And how did you decide to joke about race instead of?
You know, race had always been around. I had two fascinations growing up as a kid. One was race, one was religion. And I didn't want to mess with religion because you just don't want God mad at you. So race was the one that was right in front of me. I mean, I actually grew up in the modern era of busing, and that was interesting. Yeah. So I mean, yeah. I mean, but it's something that's every day. But you develop proficiency at it, and the more confidence I had in it, the easier it was to talk about it, right, and use humor as the glue, if you will.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to put it. So when race is a sensitive subject, and you go to different places and you have different shows, how do you start? How do you approach the subject?
I call people nasty names, just so they're used to it. Not like you haven't heard those words before. Actually, you know what? I said, Bill Cosby had a great convocation speech for Carnegie Mellon, and he talked about being this young comedian before he was really famous. And he's like, you know what, man, he knew he was good. And the way he knew he was good, he had put in all his time and all his energy. He knew he was good. And I think talking about race, putting in the time and energy makes me proficient, but I feel confident that I'm good to talk about the things. And I think that's the scope of it. And people respond. If you're confident talking about it, people are confident listening. That's what I found.
At lunch earlier, we talked about racism, and do you think it's an issue that will ever be resolved?
No. 2 reasons. Number one, it's never a level playing field or equal playing field because, people are always going to have different information about race, and it's either going to be an advantageous relationship or disadvantageous relationship. And I think the other part is, as we describe or define race here in the United States, it's almost like a false ideal in some regards because we just don't have the information. But we have a system, a culture that encourages us to be fearful, and not just fearful of other people, but fearful of information about other people that would alleviate fear. So I think that's the scope of it. And until we get to a point where we have ownership of these ideas about what we believe in the context of our core values, race will always be around because it's always going to be a situation where people can manipulate an opportunity.
Right. Do you think ignorance plays a big part of it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I find, like I said, most races these days, I'm just thoroughly unimpressed. Mm-hmm. They're not as good as they used to be. They can't trick you. You see them coming a mile away. I had a guy in Nashville a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. He was homeless and racist. I didn't know you could do both. Did you?
No. So
he has a sign, and I can see he's homeless. I was going to give him a couple dollars. He plays the race card on me. Mm-hmm. It's like, did you see my sign? I was like, yeah, I saw your sign. He's like, well, you ain't got nothing to say? He goes, you can read, can't you? I was like, yeah, boss, I can read, And he goes, you ain't got nothing to say? I was like, yeah, dude, you spelled work wrong, And then he gets upset. He goes, that's, pardon the language. That's what the world needs, another smart. And I could have gotten really angry. He was looking for an emotional response, but I didn't give it to him. I was like, excuse me, sir, are you talking to me? He goes, yeah, I'm talking to you, stranger boy. I said, no, sir. I said, last name. He said, what's your first name? I said, Wealthy. And then we couldn't have any more fun. He was like, you know what, just leave me alone. I was like, quitter.
Funny.
Stick to your guns, quitter.
So when you go to these different colleges and
Yes.
tour, and you know, with your inner racism tour, what do you hope to? What's your goal to get across, or what do you hope to get across? to
The goal
college
is,
students?
you know, you wanna lend a spirit, or let's say a spirit or aura that people can really solve their problems in their life, or really solve some of the questions in their life that they have about race. Because a lot of times, you know, people are in a very predictive state where they analyze. And, you know, pound for pound, people are just not really good at analyzing. You know, most analyzations are pretty whack or off base. You know, and we talk about, you know, analyze the situation. You don't have training. You don't have, you know, adjunct information, but people think they're experts. And they think they're experts for their realm of relevancy. And I think that is the issue. So a lot of times, you know, you want to be able to lend something that's a tool that people can take ownership of, to create that space, a meaningful space whereby they can have dialogue, not feel fearful about going out and getting, you know, other information. You know, we just had the Obama election where just for a split second, people were like, you know what, I'm going to stop thinking this way. And, you know, then they woke up and they were like, oh, hell no. You know? But I think that is the one thing I do advocate. You know, this is a thinking lecture. You know, comedy is intricate. You know, really good comedy is really intricate because there's so many trap doors that a comedian's trying to lead you to get. You know, my comedy is hard because I make people work. I'm just not gonna give it to you. I'm gonna make you work. Making you laugh is the easiest thing I can do. Making you work to get to develop value out of, you know, what you've seen or what you heard is an art form. I'm still learning it, you know.
Right.
Cosby could do it. Pryor was a master. Dick Gregory was a master. Mort Saul was a master. You know, I'm 20-some years in the game, still trying to figure out, you know, exactly how we do this.
Right.